Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I'm your host, Stacey, and I cannot wait to dive into this juicy conversation that I'm going to have with Loralee Dodson. She's our guest today. And she's like me. She's a curious person. She wants to, take a step back and get curious about what people are thinking and what they're doing and why, and all of those kind of, again, interesting little threads that make people who they are. And she's also a life certified, or I should say, certified life coach and health coach. And her focus is really helping people, reconnect with their bodies and use this wisdom and really be embodied in a way that, again, is feels good and all those things. So today we are going to talk about some things like the should shame cycle and how we can get wrapped up in this cycle and how it takes us away from our body and all its wisdom and magic. So we're going to find out what that is and what we can do differently and how that's going to help us unlock a lot more enchantment on today's episode. Greetings, Loralee. I'm so excited.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. So tell us, before we kind of dive into all the juicy things that I know we're going to talk about today, tell us a little bit of like how you got here, how you got to be a coach, and your focus on, again, helping people kind of reconnect to their body's wisdom. I would love to hear a little bit more about your background.
I worked as a health and fitness coach for over 20 years and had my own business and did the whole thing. And I didn't realize it was through working with these hundreds of bodies and seeing the pain that my people were in and experiencing my own, right? Because people assume that when you're in the fitness industry and you're the person that's up front teaching the class or doing the things, we make it look really easy because it's our job. But even in that healthy place that my body looked, I was literally dying. Like my doctor was saying, this is shutting down, this is going on, this is happening. I'm not sleeping. I'm not doing all these things, but I'm making sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look on the outside, because otherwise I don't have clients, right? So This is my undercurrent. My clients a lot of them were coming to me for injuries and for, like car accidents, hip fusions, back fusion, or hip replacements, back fusions, stuff like that. And I'm helping them get back on just regular daily living things. And then, of course, there were a lot of people that wanted to fix their nutrition or lose weight or whatever. But they would do phenomenally well when they were with me. And then I would see them a year later. I'd graduate them. I'd be like, here's your book. It's got the exercises. It's got the things. I know you know how to do this because I've been with you. And they would be so frustrated because a life thing hit them and they would have gained the weight back, or they would have hurt themselves, or they would have, where that wasn't going to be a thing.
Right.
So that was something that bothered me. And I knew I wasn't getting deep enough. Another thing that happened with this experience was when I would be working with a client, I would be able to watch them and read their body and have them have just like an idea pop into my head that I'd never thought about before on how to do a particular exercise specifically for this person or what this person specifically needed. And so I would say, okay, do this, just adjust slightly, lift this way. And they would completely be able to do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've had pain forever and ever and ever. And this is now making it better and blah, blah, blah. Well, I just thought that was a thing. But it turns out
the idea that popped,
like everybody does it, right?
I thought that for a while too. Go ahead.
So, but it turns out no. So it turns out I'm a body whisperer and bodies talk to me. So as I worked those things together and I realized that, and I started to because I would just listen for the nudge for what it was that needed to happen with this individual person. Like, for instance, I had one client that she was really strong when we first started training. I would have people do sit-ups so I could watch the range of motion, how their body was working, how the joints were working, all that stuff, how strong they were. She would try to do a sit-up from the floor and she could not lift her body up. She would shake, she would go to the side. She was like, I just can't do it. In the course of having these conversations with her while we would be doing other things, I asked her one day, has that always been that way? And she goes, no, in 7th grade, some girls were making fun of me. I just never been able to do this, when we were doing the presidential fitness challenge, right? Never been able to do it, right?
Yes, and I have not good memories of those, but go ahead.
Right?
Yes.
So,
shame, there was a lot of shame. When we get to the shame part, there was a lot of shame going on with my PE teacher and that whole thing. So anyway.
So many of us. Many of us. So I'm watching her as she's telling me this story. We were doing a different movement altogether. And I just, again, had just sort of this nudge. So I'm like, do me a favor, sit down on the floor and sit up. Start your sit up from sitting up instead of laying down on the floor. And I've never, ever done this with people.
Right.
So she sat up and she went and laid back. And then she came up perfectly straight and laid back and had complete control over everything that she was doing without collapsing into other parts of her body. And her face dropped, she lit up, she was like, holy cow, and you're so amazing. But it wasn't me, it was that I could listen to her body, right? I have never had anybody do that. But it made it so that she was empowered. She was able to go kind of from the side to be able to feel this satisfaction and see how strong she was, see that she had that capability. So that was when I really started, and situations like that were when I really started to just be like, holy crap, we are conditioned and socialized that if we can take care of the stuff on the outside, then we're going to suddenly be in this wonderland of self-worth and feel completely secure all the time, and we'll be surrounded by rainbows and guilt-free donuts.
What a terrible, beautiful, horrible lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting too, even just what I hear, and this is so tied to just how I see the world as well too, is like there's a right way to do an exercise. There's a right way, and everybody has to be trained in the exact way. And what I love about what you're saying is what you were realizing, and then your clients then benefited, was this idea that no, what is it that their body needs? What is it? How does their body want to approach something? And to me, that's the undercurrent of all enchantment everywhere. It's
100%.
like when we do it our own way and trust our own wisdom, which our bodies are huge parts of that. To me, if you want more intuition in your life, you cannot be disconnected.
No.
You're going to have a really hard time being disconnected from your body and doing that and having that intention.
100%. And that's the culture, is that we are conditioned to look outside for how we're supposed to do things.
Absolutely.
But our body has been our best friend since we arrived on the planet.
I love that.
The problem is that we forget that. We forget that we are the only ones. Our body is the only one with us from first breath to
the last one. Yeah.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
She's the only one that keeps showing up, no matter how shitty we treat her, no matter how we talk to him, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It still shows up. And we might have been out partying last night. We might be hungover. We might be sicker than a dog, but she's still fighting. She's still like killing the cell, viruses or bacteria, or working her hardest to make sure that we keep going. And I thought for a long time, because this was the world that I was in, I thought I was in tune with my body. I wasn't in tune with my body. I was just really freaking good at forcing my body. And that's
a really good distinction.
And so that's where my passion comes from, right?
I love it.
That it doesn't matter if you are just wanting to become more active, or if you have been an athlete your whole life,
Mhm.
we feel like shit about ourselves because we are telling ourselves, I should be able to do this. I ought to be able to do this. Everybody else can do it. How come I can't do it? Obviously, I just got a cut rate meat sack that I have to drag through this. Right?
I have not used that exact phrase on myself, but I like it, and I'm sure there's people out there that can relate to that. I love, and you know what's interesting too. I hope you don't mind me bringing this up,
No,
but the other day, because again, you and I have been talking about this now for a while, because it's such an interesting topic for both of us. But this idea too of body entitlement, like because I work out, because I do, go to the gym and I eat clean, whatever, however that we define whatever that is, that somehow my body should, and
right,
then fill in the blank,
right.
rather than absolutely being in the present moment with our body, which there are no rule, right? Like there is
Mhm,
no like, hey, because I do X, this is what
mhm,
absolutely should happen. And I
mhm.
think a lot of us can get tripped. I know I have been tripped up
Oh
on
yeah,
that many a
100%.
time.
100%. 100%. And even, and like, and we talked about this the other day, but when I never in all of my training and all of my whatevers when
Mhm.
my personal going out riding my bike or whatever, have I ever had heat stroke.
Yeah.
But I did the other day because I went out in, it was like 87 degrees, and um and 92% humidity, and went out and
Mhm.
walked 5 miles, and all of a sudden started to feel sick to my stomach, and see spots, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And knowing what was going on, knowing how I could fix it, but just almost feeling myself go, well, I'm gonna suck it up. I can't do this. This is not what I do. I don't get heat stroke. I don't blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Right. And that was
Yeah.
when I was like, holy shit. I have body entitlement. I am like,
It was such an aha for me when you said that too,
feel
because
about this doesn't happen to me.
yeah. And I think we all think that, right? Oh, I do this or I am this or, I'm a health coach or I'm a trainer. We fill in whatever title it is
Mhm,
that this shouldn't be happening. And again, it's an interesting thing around that because then we're kind of fighting
mhm,
rather than somebody said years ago, like, how do you actually, partner with your body
mhm,
rather than, and I don't remember some famous person said that. And it was like, yeah, like, because I've been at war for so long
yeah,
with, like, to your point, trying to get something on the outside to be a certain way, ignoring what was going on
mhm,
the inside, and
mhm,
just overpowering and expecting my body just to toe the line. And
mhm.
it's like, I realized that that got me all sorts of sideways. And
100%.
it never got right, and I know you know this, it's like it never gets us whatever we think, right? "Hey, I lost 100 pounds 15 years ago, I was like
Mhm,
a size 2," and
mhm,
everybody was like, "You look amazing," right? On the outside,
mhm.
I was the most miserable because I was going through a really messy divorce at the time. I was like the most miserable I've ever been. I could have cared less what size
Right,
I was at
right,
that particular point because it just didn't feel good.
right.
And it's such an interesting thing though, how many compliments I got, right? And nobody was really paying attention to the disconnect. I mean, I
Right.
knew it, but I wasn't talking about it.
Right. And then that whole experience is exacerbated by what we have with social media and,
Yes.
all of those things, because even though logically we know that
Mhm.
we're seeing a picture, that is 2 inches or,
Yeah.
1.5 inches by 2 inches, whatever, um, that has been completely staged. But
Right.
like behind this screen, I it's
Yeah,
my
real
lily
life.
bench. I
Yeah.
make jewelry back there, and there's a reason I have a screen here, right? You guys don't need to see all my, like, little whatevers. But that's what we are showing people too,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
before the show, like Rich was mentioning, Oz, and I have used that so often where we feel like we have to set ourselves up and make sure that people only see this part, because if they really saw behind the
Yeah.
curtain, they would know what a freaking train wreck I am. And I
Yeah.
can't have that, because they'll think, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. Somebody's going to figure it out, and they're going to realize that, that sometimes I get up in the middle of the night and have a donut, or I have I don't go to sleep, or I,
Yeah.
stay up all night. Right.
So true.
And that's where we get caught in that loop of I've just got to fix it. Then I'll feel better. Then I will, if I just fix
Mm.
my nose, if I just fix my ass, if I just,
Mhm.
know, don't eat. Oh my gosh, I ate too much yesterday. Now I can't eat today and I need to. This is one of the things that frustrates the crap out of me when, like day after Halloween or Thanksgiving, and people are like, "Well, I had this, and this, so that means, you know,
Yeah.
3 hours on the treadmill." No, no, lovey, that's not what it means. What it means is, how are you feeling? And give yourself some time. But
Mhm.
that's where that should shame cycle kicks in, right?
Yeah, say more about this. I want to talk about this with the listeners because when you started sharing this, I was like, "Oh, this is juicy."
Mhm, mhm. So we have been geared toward figuring out the things that we have to fix, what we're doing wrong,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Um,
Totally.
but the problem is, and we launch into, well, I should do this, I ought to do this, I have to do
Mhm.
this, blah blah blah. But even those words, immediately, if I should be doing something, that implies
Mhm.
I'm not doing something,
Yeah.
and I automatically have that coupled with shame.
Wow.
So when you
Right.
use the word shame, or that the word should, you will immediately feel shame for it.
Mhm.
Less than. When we do that, that feeds this lie that we have about ourselves, that we're not magical,
Yeah.
that somehow we screwed up, and everybody else can look like this. I just
Mhm.
should have more motivation. I just should have
Yeah.
not eaten this thing. I just should have called in sick when I knew we were going to have company pictures. I should have always
Mm.
hid behind my kid in
Mhm.
whatever, instead of being able to feel aware and alive and brilliant, and
Mhm.
nurture that. We're
Yeah.
so caught in that spiral that we aren't even aware that that's there. That
I agree with you.
becomes an entitlement itself, right? Like,
That's true. That's true, the way you say that. Yeah, and, it's interesting too because it's like, okay, if I have to keep fixing,
mhm,
then that idea of like I always even just when I was trained as a coach, it's like we're all whole and complete, which I know not everybody says. Lots of people like to say people are broken. I don't
no,
believe that we
mhm,
are broken. I believe that there are things, right, that we need to lean into and
so
maybe
true.
re-navigate how we're in relationship with them. However, I don't believe we're like broken because that just perpetuates, to your
Exactly.
point, this idea that then we have to fix
Exactly.
something.
Right, right. So, you have a car. If
Mhm.
you don't ever change the tire, if you
Yep.
don't ever check the oil, if you don't ever put more gas in it, it doesn't mean the car's broken. It
Right.
means that things need to be adjusted, right? And
Absolutely.
our bodies are, a lot of times our body gets referred to as a machine, but it's not. It is a
Mhm.
fully functional entity that's helping us. It is us, right?
Yeah.
We are not a machine, but we try to act as though we are.
Yeah.
And we try to force ourselves into this box that somebody else said was how we were supposed to be. And for us
Mhm.
women, it's been generational. Like,
Yeah.
we are just starting to be able to really address that we're not property, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
literally could be burned at the stake if we stepped out of line, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
No, you're right.
my husband decides that he needs a younger model, I can be checked into an insane asylum. So that's
Yeah.
cool, right?
Yeah.
So, and that has been passed down through our genetics. It's
Yeah.
not, I don't have that. I have a wonderful partner.
Mhm.
But
But the
there is
echo of it,
still,
right?
yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
right.
Mhm.
And the reality is that we have been taught to hate ourselves
Yeah.
and then expect that we'll have a body that we love.
Yeah,
As
I
a
love
woman,
that. I love this idea, and I say it all the time. It's like nobody ever got, right, whatever they wanted on the rainbow other side of the rainbow, if we're using that
mhm,
thing. You didn't get it by hating yourself into it. Like
right.
that doesn't work.
No.
I for me, I don't know why, but for the longest time, it's so funny to me because now it's so obvious. But
Mhm.
for the longest time, like again, I use shame. I beat myself up. I said I wasn't motivated enough, right? And why didn't I start, working out in January so I could put a
Mhm.
bathing suit? Now I don't. Now I'm like, I will wear a bathing suit whenever I want to wear a bathing suit. My body
Mhm.
is mine, and it reminds me of Sonia Renee Taylor's book, right? Our body is not an apology. Like
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
need to be out there for anybody else but me.
Right.
And that takes a lot of practice,
It
to your
does.
point. And
It
I
does.
would love, I have a couple questions for you based on everything we've been talking about. But I want to know if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, this body whispering, right? Like listening to our own body. How would you get started? Or how do you do that? Maybe somebody's like, yeah, I do that a little bit, but I'd like to do it more intentionally. What do you offer? Where do you kind of get people started with when they're starting to think about it differently?
One of the things that I'll work with with my clients is and this is why the should shame being able to identify that should shame coupling
Yeah, when
is
you're
so
in it.
important
Mhm.
because we don't realize that we're in it, right?
Yeah.
But once we're there and we feel letting ourselves dial into how we feel in that moment, right? That's an
Mm.
easy place to start because
Yeah.
we live in that how many times a day, right?
Yes.
So when you're in that and you can go, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed, allowing yourself to pause,
Mhm.
magic is always in the pause. And
Couldn't
so
agree more.
allowing yourself to pause and go, is that true?
Mhm.
Right. And even though sometimes it feels very, very real, like
Yeah.
I have no, I ate that entire thing. I feel so gross. Have no right to even, I deserve feeling this crappy, right? I
Yeah.
shouldn't have blah, whatever that is, whether it's relationship, whether it's, you know, what overspending, all of it
Yeah.
applies, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so when we kick into that, one of the tactile things that I'll have my clients do when they're feeling trapped up in their head,
Mhm.
and the first thing is to like touch two fingers together.
Ooh. Okay.
And then this helps us drop in because our brain is like, I am all bossy. And then feel first
Mm.
the ridges that are on the thumb from your
Ooh.
fingertip. And
Yeah.
then feel the
Okay.
ridges on the finger. Right. So this is nice and subtle. You
I
don't have
love this. This is
to,
simple, but it's very
yes,
specific too, to
yes.
get your head out of whatever, train it's on or hamster
100%.
wheel, coming
Right.
back in
Right.
to yes, a
Because our
physical
brain just
sensation.
wants to solve a puzzle, and you've just
Absolutely.
given it a puzzle to solve.
Mhm.
Instead of being here where it's like, I'm screwed. There's not a thing. Obviously, this is where we are. We will
Right.
never ever be able to feel better. This is what we're just a train wreck. That is the story, the end,
Yeah.
right? And we're all up here in
Totally.
order to be able, and the body's down here going, hello, 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 right?
I
And
have
so,
something to say.
you know what? I'll
Please
just be over
call on
here.
me. It's like the student in the back of the room. I was a teacher.
Totally,
It's like the student, right? Like, call
totally. It's so true, right? So
on me.
giving your body, your brain a new puzzle,
Yeah.
it's like a puppy and it's like, oh my gosh, right? Toy. And
Mhm.
so you give it something to look at, and that allows us to drop that energy back into the body.
Yeah.
Once we do that, and it takes literally 10 seconds, not
Yeah.
even that, 2 seconds, right? You just, because you interrupted what you were
Mhm.
doing,
Mhm.
you intentionally brought two fingers together.
Yeah.
So you already are into dropping into your body. The
I love it.
problem is that we are so conditioned to have that our body is just a way to get our head to different places in our life that this is where the magic is. Once we can interrupt that, then I help my clients like hear their own body's
Sure,
voice.
sure. From there, then you can have
Yeah,
conversation and
yeah.
you can listen, but you can't if you're constantly, I call it the
Mhm.
hamster wheel. Your brain
100.
just keep going, going, going. And I just love, I mean, you could be driving in the car,
Right.
and you could just be anywhere,
Mhm.
and you could be even out in public because sometimes some of
Yeah,
the tools I know you teach and that I teach,
yeah.
are better suited for for not being out. But this one I love. I've never thought of just, and it reminds me of just mudras too, which are like different finger
100%.
things. And
Mhm.
it just, I always do that. And I know a lot of people I know use those as well because it does.
Yeah.
It is that instant
Mhm.
break bringing us back in, which I
Right.
love. Okay, I
Right.
have another question for
Okay.
you along the lines of all of this. So, if we are, because I know for me, and I'm probably not perfect at this, but I'm in a different place. But if you're in this kind of like the should and the shame, and it's just like
Mhm.
this cycle, how do you start to just break that? Now I know you could, you can come in and take that pause. Are there other things that you say, hey, this is, if you're really intentional about wanting to change the relationship with the, as soon as I start going the should and then the shame,
Mhm.
what's your feeling about how to disrupt this not so nice cycle that we've all gotten ourselves into?
So a lot of the time, it's it's so much how we speak to ourselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we hear a lot about affirmations and all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and probably I'm gonna piss some people off, but
Yeah. Do
I
it.
hate
Do it.
affirmations are bullshit.
They don't work for everybody.
Well
I'm with
well
you. If it
well,
works for you, do it. But if it
right.
doesn't, let's listen to what you have.
Well,
What, yeah.
and it's the wording of it, right?
Yeah.
Because the words matter always,
Mhm.
no matter what it is that we're doing, whether we're talking to a child or whether we're talking to another human or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The words we use matter, including how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
So if I sit there and I already feel like disgusting and
Mhm.
I'm having a body dysmorphia day, right?
Mhm.
Which is, of
Mhm.
course, when what I see in the mirror is totally different than what somebody else would describe
Yeah.
them seeing me as, right? And in a negative, right? So I'm having a day like that or a moment like that. Um, if I sit there and repeat to myself, oh my gosh, Loralee, you're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Your ass is beautiful. This is fantastic. My brain's up there going, whatever,
I
sure.
like this.
Also,
I'm gonna borrow that for moments when I'm feeling good already. Be like, Stace, look, I do that. I'll be like, damn, you're looking good.
right,
But
right,
that's a different energy state than being
right,
in the shame place, right?
right.
You're
And that's
expanding something you're
the
already feeling is true in that moment.
Mhm. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, you're
Because the
right.
reality is you're
Yeah,
allowing yourself you coming to something that is neutral, right?
yeah,
So
that's a good
instead,
point.
you look yourself in the eyes, forget about the bottom part if you need
Hmm.
to, but you look at yourself in the eyes and you be delighted
Yeah.
just with that. Oh my gosh, you are smiling today and
Hmm.
you're breathing and you're kicking
Yeah.
ass at it, right? Find the thing.
Hmm.
And that is what is the most important to us because our brain can do that. Our brain can adjust to that. I can
Well, you
hug
have
my
to find something that's true,
Mhm.
right? Because to your
Yes,
point, if you're saying you're so gorgeous to
yes.
yourself, and that doesn't feel true,
Mhm.
that's not gonna. It's almost like gaslighting ourselves, right? To a point, or bypassing.
Mhm.
There's lots of different terms. Toxic positivity comes to mind
Right,
too,
right.
and so it's like, what's more real and also true?
Yes.
And sometimes right now, I will say even to myself, I'm having a really hard time in this moment, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm feeling a lot of shame, or
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
this thought that my body should be different than it is, and that just feels really true for me. And
Right.
I will say to myself, and I have compassion for
Yes.
myself, the part of me that thinks that. I have
Right.
compassion for the part of me that can't get to the place where it's like, you're beautiful right now in this
Right.
moment. And that to me, I love what you say because it does disrupt the brain. And
Mhm.
yet you're not trying to fill it with something that just feels like, it's like when I was a kid and you had a feeling you didn't want to feel, and my mom's like, here's a piece of candy or whatever,
Right.
right? It's not, hey, let
Right.
me distract you. It's,
Right.
hey, let me just come back into this moment, like your
Mhm.
magic pause, come back into this moment and just be here
Yeah.
with you as a
Mhm.
witness.
100%. Because we aren't giving ourselves credit for the fact that we did when we kick into those things or we're feeling that shame, it's been survival.
Yeah,
It's been a way for us to get here. And so it
absolutely.
just became a habit thought. It just
Yes.
became something that I have to stay small or right? Or I can't be too loud. I can't be too big. It will make somebody else feel bad. I can't, all of these things. Oh, there I go. I'm just who do I think I am? Right.
Yeah.
And, but we get to look at those and reword them and
Yeah.
find the thing that feels safe for us, because ultimately that will keep us in that headspace of I've got to fix something, like going back to our car or our house, right? Once you start looking, there will always be a little thing to fix, right? There will always be some little thing to fix. And if that's what our focus is on, that's really cool if I'm a tinkerer and that's what I want to do. But if it's not, then I need to pace myself and go, okay, well, I can do this time or when I have money for that, right? Our
Absolutely.
bodies, if we're looking at having to fix all the time, then we're never, ever, ever going to arrive at there, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
I'm enough. And when we do that, we're missing out on everything that's happening, all the beauty that's happening for us right now. And, for, like you had mentioned, so many of us have had experiences of, oh, but I did it then, I can do it again. I used to look better when blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're
Those
getting
stories can,
there,
you can pull those up pretty quick.
right? We're getting
Absolutely.
completely ruling out that there have been really hard life experiences that have happened in between. That maybe there has been an accident. Maybe we have had an illness. Maybe we have had, whatever, just life things that have happened. And instead of allowing ourselves to sit there and go, okay, what magic thing can I make out of this? What can I do to help myself feel safe and worthy by going inside and like really seeing what goodness I have? I am trying to plant a garden in a recycled rubber tire plot of land, right? It's not going to grow. There will be one feisty little weed that will work its way out.
Well, there's always the sassy one.
You need to be the feisty one. But letting ourselves, just like you said, just having kindness for ourselves, right?
I think that's the antidote to the should shame. I don't know about you, but and it's not the easiest thing because again, it wasn't taught, it wasn't nurtured, it's not encouraged. We're very much encouraged to be in the fix it mode, all of us, especially women. And I think that it's radical disruption to do something different. It's like, I always say it's revolutionary, even though it's like, people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, to love yourself and have compassion and to be a messy, flawed human. Like, it's not about trying to achieve some state of perfection or tell yourself you're perfect when you're not. It's not about any of that. It's just like, then we can actually get to the real shit. Like, this is what I think. When we're not consumed by the energy of problem solving our bodies, we can actually do the things that we're here to do, help the planet shift into something way better than where we've been. We have all this magic and all these intuitive gifts to offer, and we can actually have the bandwidth to put them out for ourselves and for other people in a way that I'm telling you that this, like, hey, let's keep everybody in this space. It's like an act of suppression to me.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And it's making them like the diet and the beauty industry, right? Make billions.
Gazillion. What's after a billion? Is trillion after a billion? There's got to be getting close, right?
It's totally. And then that by itself is not a motivating reason to actually help you feel good about yourself.
No, they want you to be off kilter.
Right.
Yeah,
and so letting ourselves be in this place of beautiful rupture, right?
I love
Right.
that.
Just
The way you
being
said
like,
that.
it's when we allow ourselves to savor the possibility that nudge that I'm feeling, it sounds exciting to me. And so I can try it, even though that's totally different. Like in that case I was telling you about with my one client, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't do sit-ups like that. I mean, of course you can. It wasn't like it was going to hurt or anything,
Sure.
but that was not the prescribed do this thing that I had done with hundreds of other people. But with her, this nudge of her body going, please just help me this, right? And I could see, as the outsider, I could see that she didn't have the things that she had in her brain, as
Mhm.
like she was saying scoliosis, and I'm looking at her spine, and I'm no doctor, but I'm looking at her spine, and I'm like, really? Because I see it. Okay, all right, because
Mhm.
that made it
Mhm.
that she felt safe.
Yeah.
So allowing ourselves to have these moments where we just practice trusting ourselves, like you were saying
Mhm.
with, your the magic that we have, it's like a radio station. We have to dial back into it. When we were little and we were running around and we've got our tutu and our cowboy boots and the wrong feet, and we've got our, you know, train we're dragging with us everywhere, covered in mud, we don't care.
Yeah.
We weren't out there trying to impress anybody. We didn't even notice that our cute little cheeks were covered in mud. We were just like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the bug?" Right?
Right? Totally.
That's the wonder that we arrived on the planet with. All this other stuff is
Yeah.
us trying to please somebody else. And as
Yeah.
long as we're trying to do that, we diminish who we are. We
It
diminish our own self-trust.
it's so true. It makes me think of the question sometimes that I also use as a tool too. It's like, whose voice, like whose belief is this? Whose voice is this
Mhm.
talking? I will say that, and clients love that question.
Yes.
And I love
Yes.
it too, because it's
Yes.
like, is this mine? Is this
Right.
mine? And again, even before the world got to me, or
Mhm.
is this some version of, again, whatever, the diet industry, a trainer, a teacher that, maybe meant well but didn't,
Mhm.
whatever it is, that helps create a little bit. Again, we're always trying to create a little bit of pause or a little
Yeah.
separation to
Yeah.
be like, no, that's the world wanting me to spend a gazillion
Mhm.
dollars on whatever the next diet or beauty cream is. And I'm okay in this moment. Like, I
Yeah.
can recognize that voice. It probably might show up again next week or 3 days from now. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
And I think that that's it. And I love your process of just, again, giving us all permission to really ask and like be curious about, like,
Mhm.
does this work for me? Is there a better way? What is my body saying about, like, just bringing curiosity to all of this will
Yes.
change the course and
Mhm.
relationship you have with these cycles, and again,
100%.
this habits that feel like sometimes I think people, and I know I've thought this, can I actually break this? Because it feels so like rooted in me. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what? I absolutely can.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is having these experiences, and we've all had them, right? Like,
Mhm.
we some of that conditioning is that, if I'm not ready to vomit, then it wasn't a good workout. It doesn't count,
Mm.
right?
Or pee
Or
myself. Somebody wanted me to work out, pee myself. I was like, oh, I'm out.
right, exactly.
I'm
Or
not doing
that,
that.
not having a conversation, that's something that happens as you get older, right? Like,
Yes.
everybody
Yes.
is
True.
having
True.
that,
True.
right?
True.
But we are so ashamed because
Yeah.
I must be the only one, right? But here's
I
like the
agree.
perfect example. Like, we go out and maybe you went on a hike, maybe you went to a class, maybe you just, had a great conversation with a friend,
Mhm.
maybe you just had sex and had a beautiful orgasm, right?
Oh,
Any of those things. You walk into the bathroom, you see yourself in the mirror, and you're like, damn,
mhm.
feeling pretty good, right? And so you take your clothes off and you're ready to hop in the shower, whatever. And you're like, I am feeling really good. I feel really good. I'm going to hop on the scale. You hop on the scale,
Oh,
and the scale says something that you did not expect.
mhm. Mhm.
And instantly, you
Mhm.
look back in the mirror and you're like, I'm hideous. I should never leave the house without a bag over my head. I don't even know why people talk to me. I can't
Mhm.
trust when my sweetheart says I look beautiful. He's totally
Mhm.
full of shit. He
Yeah.
just he just no. Like, right? And the only thing that happened, nothing changed except that you saw a number that you judged as not acceptable based on other people's
Yeah.
information.
So
But
true.
you, the real you, was that first one.
Yeah.
Was that first one that was just like at peace and digging, being in your body and feeling that joy. And we get to have that. It's that
Mm.
other stuff that gets piled on that says, oh my gosh, you were so close, but not worthy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I decided I don't have time for that shit. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Of course, I'm
No.
human. It comes up for me, but I'm not going to give it a lot of airplay anymore because,
Yes.
again, like you said, then you're having this beautiful moment with yourself. And then all of a sudden you've hijacked it into something that feels
Yes.
horrible. And it's like, if
Yes.
both are equally true, and again, who knows if that's even true, but let's just say I
Yeah.
want to choose the things that feel
Mhm.
way
Mhm.
better. I don't know if it's getting older too, and I just feel like the older I get, the more, when you see people you love who aren't
For sure.
here on the planet anymore, it's like,
Yes.
how many breaths I got, I'm not gonna use them going down this little spiral scales, this
100%.
and I did that because I weighed
100%.
myself 5 times a day when I was in the midst
Mhm.
of losing all that weight. So I get that. Like,
Yeah.
it had a good hour if I weighed certain thing, and then a bad hour, then it's like,
Mhm.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no.
And literally it can change in a moment.
Yeah,
And
and
so
taking it up.
allowing
Yeah,
yeah, just allowing that's okay. That's
yeah,
just part of us.
yeah.
And so that is what we wish that we had, what we yearn for was our childhood of where we didn't care. We were like,
Yes,
my boots
it's
look best
true.
on these feet. I don't know who said they had to be on those feet, but I want these, right?
A
And so
tutu and pajamas and I don't know, a winter hat, why not?
exactly, and a fireman hat, right?
Why
Yes,
not?
and so letting ourselves come back into that play place
Yeah,
then
that's a good
allows
point.
so much other goodness because we've already decided that
Yes,
that's where we are, and
yes,
then you know what happens is that we lose extra weight because 'cause we're not up in the middle of the night
yeah,
eating. We're not hiding in
yeah,
pictures. Our children are seeing us show up for them, get in the pool with them.
it's
We
true.
get to stop sitting on the sidelines. I've had
Mhm.
clients that have gone off medications that they've been on for years, blood pressure and anxiety and things like that, simply because they started to listen what was going on in their body. And the doctor was like, holy cow, does it happen all the time? No, because our bodies are still needing
Yeah.
support sometimes, right?
Absolutely, and it's
Right.
nuanced, and not everything is,
Exactly.
one way or the other way, but I
Exactly.
agree with you. I have clients all the time say to me, "I lost like 10 pounds," like, well, and that was not even an intention, but you're right.
Mhm.
When you start being present with yourself, when you start giving yourself permission to do things in a way that feels good to you, you invite curiosity and playfulness,
Mhm.
and it brings in the magic.
Yeah.
You have a life that's a very different it and again, it may look the same on the outside to some
Mhm.
people, but when you feel it and look into it, it
Right.
really has, like, from the inside out,
Mhm.
a whole different flavor to it, which, oh,
100%.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, so
100%.
Loralee, I could talk to you for forever, as everybody pretty much knows I can talk and talk and talk and talk. However, I do wanna just kinda wrap it up for our listeners.
Sure.
If somebody was listening to this conversation or just something that you just wanna impart as we close, what would be the one thing that you would want somebody just again, just one thing to take from today and practice or play with or think about maybe differently moving forward? What would it be?
That we arrived on this planet already totally worthy. We have all of the skills and the love and the support that we need within ourselves. And
Mhm.
when we let ourselves begin to trust that, everything else falls into place. It's still hard because shit happens,
Yep.
but we get to trust ourselves. And when we trust ourselves, our relationship with our body is our foundational relationship for everybody else that we
It's
come in
true.
contact with. And
It's so
so
true.
allowing ourselves to just trust us and see what happens and play,
Mhm.
that's magic.
I love it. So how can you, if you're out there and you're like, I do trust myself, like maybe a little stretch, 5% out
Mhm.
more, 10% out
100%.
more,
Even 1%. Because
1%, play.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you're
just
like,
play.
I should bring a pen, and then how many of us have had like silly things like, oh, I should
Mhm.
grab that
Yeah.
and bring it with me, but we blow it off, and then we're like, I totally knew. It's just letting yourself start to trust those things, tune
Yes.
into those things, instead of immediately rushing out to go, but what do you think?
Yeah.
I was thinking I would bring a pen, Stacey, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
What
stop
about-
crowdsourcing. I
Yeah.
am a big believer in stop crowdsourcing your own wisdom that you have.
Yes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful asset, and only you have it. And so, yes, that's
And we
another
can't
important point.
crowdsource our personal value.
Yeah,
That's something we have to decide. And
Yeah.
it's something we decide and then we practice. It's
Yeah.
not something that we will ever find. And then the money that we end up spending on diet plans and workouts
Mhm.
and this and this and this to
Mhm.
get there will never, ever, ever make us feel like enough
Yeah.
because we are not trusting ourselves yet. We're expecting somebody else to give us the answer, but we have the answer.
True. It's so true. Oh, so juicy. I love, 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 love. Okay. So Loralee, somebody's listening. They want to connect with you on the socials. They want to find out more. They want to work with you. Where do they find you? How can they connect? And I will put everything that you say in the show notes. So
You can find me at LoraleeDodson.com.
Okay.
Or you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Life Coach Lore, LOR.
Okay.
And
Dishing out all this wisdom out there on the socials.
yeah. And actually I am working on moving away from the socials because I don't like having people dive into that arena
Mm-hmm.
to
Find you and be connected with you. I
feel good
totally
about their
get that.
body and about themselves and about all the things, you know.
Well,
and
there's a
so
lot of noise out there too.
that's happening, but if they want to connect with me right now, that's still a way that they can message
So
me.
they should just go right to your website and
Right?
dial right in directly. I love
Super
that.
pretty. And I'm always happy to have people, just letting them ask a question. If they're just like, hey, but what about? Sometimes we just need to, have that second, and that's important.
I love
So,
that. Well, you're a guide for people on the planet making these changes. So
and I've been through it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole thing of all of us. This is why is we're like, holy shit, you get to be your own body whisperer. You have already had your best friend as your
There you go. You are your own body whisperer. That's like that's it. In a nutshell, everything we've talked about.
Right.
There it is in 2 words. Oh, Loralee, you are such a, just to me, every time I talk with you, it's like inspiring. It reminds me of things. It brings me back into my body. I love, 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 love. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your sense of humor, just your zest for life is contagious. So thank you for just letting us bathe in the energy of that as well today too. So
thank you for having me on. It was really fun.
Oh, such a pleasure. Until next time, we will see you on the flip side. That's it for now, loves. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Get all the juicy details and links we've mentioned in the show notes. If learning more about how you can use your own enchantment to live a oh hell yes life, come get your own coaching session with me by going to staceyandon.com and signing up for my homepage. And as always, come chat with me about this topic and all things enchantment in my Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment. See you on the flip side.